For this video, I am going to cover how to solve using factoring. Now, this first problem I'm going to cover is actually already factored. You can tell it's already factored because there's two sets of parentheses right here. When it's already factored, all we need to do is set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite 4y minus 3 equals 0, and then I will solve for y. To solve, I will add 3 to both sides. So I have 4y is equal to positive 3, because the 3's cancel each other out here. And then I will divide both sides by 4 to get rid of this 4. So I have y is equal to 3 over 4 for our first answer. Then I do the same thing for the other expression. So we've got y plus 2 as well. That's our other factor. I'm going to set that equal to 0. For this one, all you have to do is subtract 2, and then we'll have the y by itself. So the 2's will cancel, so we have y is equal to negative 2. So those right here, these are our two answers. Just remember that in the computer, you don't write the y equals. You're just going to tell me, I already have the y equals written for you, so you just have to tell me what the two numbers are, and you just separate your answers with commas. So you just write it like this. There will always be there will already be a y equals before the box where you enter everything in, or whatever variable. Okay, so that is an example of one where it's already factored for you. We're going to go ahead and do two examples where you're going to have to factor. I'm going to do the two factoring methods you're really going to have to know are the fast method and the lightning bolt. Sorry, I forgot what the term was. The lightning bolt method. So I'm going to go ahead and review each one of those. The two-term method, you don't actually need to factor using two-term method at all on this homework, and I'll talk about that in the last video, why that's the case. So we're going to go ahead and do this problem. I can tell this is a fast method problem because there is nothing in front of the w squared, or you can think of it as the a value is equal to 1. When you have nothing in front or your a value is 1, you're going to multiply the first number by the last. Now, I should back up. I did forget one thing. You do need to check to make sure that this equation is equal to 0, which this one is, which is why I can just jump right into factoring. So I multiply 1 times negative 40, that's negative 40. And then you go to your little factor chart. And on your factor chart, you're looking for two pairs of numbers, and they need to add up to 18. Now, you have to remember something special about these two numbers, though. So we have two numbers, they need to add up to 18, but because this is a negative 40, that means one of the numbers is negative while the other number is positive. So the two numbers I'll use are negative 2 and positive 20. Because it's fast method, I can go ahead and write my answers down. So I'll just use the same variable, so it was a w, so I'll write a w. And then I'm going to start with my first number, which was negative 2. And put that in parentheses. And then I repeat the variable again, so w, and then I'll use my second number, the 20, and put plus 20 since it's positive. And then this still all equals 0, so we're good to go. Now you're going to notice it looks just like the previous problem where we have our parentheses. So we'll go ahead and solve each of these expressions, or equations. So w minus 2 is equal to 0. I'll add 2 to both sides, and I get w is equal to positive 2. And then for the other one, I'm going to go ahead and solve this expression or equation, w plus 20 equals 0. And then we'll subtract 20 from both sides. So w is equal to negative 20. And remember, as I talked about in the previous problem, you just write both answers separated by a comma. You don't have to put the w equals in. I will already have that for you. Let's go ahead and do the last problem. So that was our fast method. Just a little review. Let's review how to do long. And I can tell that this problem is going to be long method, or the lightning bolt is what I usually call it, because there's a number in front of the squared term. Now, there's something we'd have to do before we even factor, though. You'll notice that we have this 12 on the other side, and we need it to equal 0. So I need to subtract 12 from both sides. And 12 doesn't have an x on it, so I can't combine it with any of those numbers. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 5x squared minus 17x minus 12, and that is equal to 0. So we've got the 0. Now we can factor. So just like before, I'm going to take my first number, multiply it by my last. So 5 multiplied by negative 12 is negative 60. And then you guys have your chart. Hopefully you've pulled them out by now. You're going to go to 60 on your chart. You're going to find two numbers that add together to give you negative 17. And maybe I should have switched my examples, but too late now. Because it's negative, that means one number is negative, one number is positive. Just remember, if it was positive, if you have a positive number on top, that means either your numbers are both positive or both numbers are negative, if you have a case like that. In this problem, we would be using negative 20. I'm actually going to rewrite that order because it doesn't matter what order you put them in. I'm going to do 3 and negative 20. I'm going to do that for a reason later on in this problem. So we've got 3 and negative 20 are the two numbers we'll use. Now this is the long or lightning bolt method. So I have to rewrite everything. I can't just go right to my answer. So when you rewrite it, I'm going to highlight things so you remember. So you're going to rewrite that first number. It's going to stay exactly the same. So 5x squared. The middle term gets split up, and you split it up based on these numbers over here, the 3 and the negative 20. So I'm going to put plus 3x, I put an x on it, and a minus 20x. And then your last term, the negative 12, also just comes straight down. So the only thing you're changing is the middle number. And we call it lightning bolt because we draw our lightning bolt. Ka-chow. Okay, this is where we use the chart again. So you're going to look at 5 and 3 on the chart, and you're going to find the biggest number that they both have in common. In this case, they both have a 1 in common, but they also have x's in common. Both terms have an x. And then we'll divide. So 5 divided by 1 is 5. X squared divided by x, you're just going to take one of those x's out, so you're left with x. Let's do the next one. 3 divided by 1 is 3. This is not an x squared on this one, so I'm taking an x out, so there's no x left over this time. Okay, then we go to the second pair. So like the first pair, you need to look at the 20 and 12 this time, and you're going to find the biggest number they have in common on the chart. If you look at both of those, the biggest number they have in common is a 4. However, because our first number is negative, we're going to do a negative 4. That way when we divide, we get a positive 5 because we want these to match up. So negative 20 divided by negative 4 is positive 5, and we keep an x. Now you'll notice, I should have said this earlier, but I didn't put an x on 4. That's because we didn't have an x on both numbers in the last one, on the last pair. Okay, negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. So you'll notice this matches up with that. So we're going to go ahead and rewrite this as 5x plus 3. And then you write the outside terms as 1x minus 4, and this all equals 0. Now, unfortunately, we're not done, but at least the last step, I think, is the fastest step. So that was kind of the long process. I'm going to rewrite this over here just so I have some room. So we have 5x plus 3 and 1x minus 4. Just a reminder, if it's a 1 in front of the x, you do not need to write that. So I'm going to erase that. I'm just going to leave it as x minus 4. And then the last step is to just set them equal to 0. You don't have very many of these types of questions. Most of the factoring I give you will be the fast method. So I'm going to set them both equal to 0 and solve. So let's start with the leftmost one. So I'll subtract 3 from both sides. and then I'll divide by 5. So that cancels the 3, this cancels the 5. And for our first answer, you get negative 3 over 5. So that's answer number 1. And then the last answer, I'll just add 4 to both sides of the equation. And you get x equals positive 4. And just remember, you'll just write those with a comma between the two numbers.